It's the end of the day. You're standing in your studio. You're about to flip the lights off. You take one last look around. You see that the equipment is nice and tidy. Everything has been put away. It has been cleaned off. The towels are folded. The room is finally quiet. And you suddenly think, why does it feel like I'm the only one carrying all of this? And I think there's a truth that most won't say out loud, and that is that studio ownership can be profoundly isolating, even when you're surrounding yourself every day by so much clients, team members, a calendar that's bursting at the seams, a never-ending to-do list. So today I want to talk about that. I want to talk about why that feeling of isolation actually isn't just in your head. I want to talk about how it impacts your studio growth, often far more than you realize. And most importantly, I want to talk about the shifts that can often unlock some real support, real clarity, and real momentum in your business. So if you've ever felt like you're building your dream, but doing it all alone and it's starting to feel heavy, this episode is going to feel like a big exhale. Well, hi there, I'm Seran Glanfield. I'm a business and marketing strategist just for boutique fitness studio owners like you. If you're ready to be inspired and make a bigger impact, you're in the right place. All you need are a few key strategies, the right mindset, and some support along the way. Join me as I share the real-life insights that will help you grow a sustainable and profitable studio. This is the Pilates Business Podcast. Well, hey there, and welcome back to the Pilates Business Podcast. I'm Seran Glanfield, and I'm so thrilled that you're here today because what we're talking about is something that comes up in every single conversation that I have with founder operators of boutique fitness studios. And yet, only a very few would actually admit publicly. And that is that studio ownership can feel incredibly isolating. Now, when I start working with studio owners inside of my Thrive program, we aren't just here to talk numbers, but we do. We aren't just here to talk marketing campaigns, but of course we do. We don't just talk about retention. We don't just talk about structure and organization and productivity and all of the things that make your business the amazing business that it is today. But we also talk about your mindset, because for so many, that's often what is holding us back. And I think one of the things that often keeps us very, very stuck is this feeling of feeling isolated. And often when you look successful, even when your schedule is packed, even when your clients adore you, you can still feel isolated. And the irony is that you probably started your business because you love to give people this better sense of movement and health and vitality. You love connecting and teaching and serving and creating a space where your community feels supported. But somewhere along the way, the weight of running a business, the decisions, right, the financial pressure, the hiring, the marketing, the constant problem solving and the putting out of the fires, right? It probably always all started to sort of pull you into this quiet, invisible bubble, right? Where you might feel quite alone in your decisions. Not that many people understand what it might feel like to be in your shoes. A lot of people might think that it's way more fun and more easier than it actually is, right? You often also feel alone in your challenges because it's, again, you're isolated and you're not feeling as though you can share those challenges with anyone. You feel alone even when you have growth, that you're seeing good things. It's also just as isolating because you're not really sure who it is that you're going to be sharing those celebrations with, right? And I think the worst part of that sort of feeling is that a part of your brain kicks in to assume that everyone else has it all figured out. And I want you to know that you are not alone. First of all, I say this a lot here on the podcast, and we talk about it. Inside of our community, inside of Thrive, we are a community, and everyone is there to support each other. And I think that when you feel isolated when you are running a business, I think it means you're human. I think it's very normal to feel that way from time to time. But I also don't want you to feel that way and it make you not feel happy, right? And it make you not want to, do what you do or hold you back from the potential that exists for yourself and your business. And often that feeling of isolation means that perhaps you are carrying too much, perhaps without enough support or structure or clarity. And so I want to unpack today a little bit about what this feeling of isolation means. Not the surface level, like I'm super busy reasons, but some of the deeper reasons that I've observed and heard when the conversations that I've had with studio owners. And I want to also talk about the mindset shift that can turn that isolation more into that place of connection and support, right? And I think I want to help you overcome this idea that we just need to push harder and do more and add more to your plate and just push through, and that it should always be this sort of uphill, heavy battle, right? I think there is a way of doing this that is different. I think you can lead your business differently, that you can step into that light and that lightness when you choose to build your business your way. Okay. And this is what I support my studio owners to do inside of Thrive. Like I say all the time, there's no cookie cutter here, right? This is all about helping you build the business that you want and that you deserve with all of the different skills, talents, tools, and experience that you have at your fingertips. So let's kick off with talking about one of the big problems that I see. And I think that oftentimes when you open your studio or you're the leader of the studio, right, you're used to being the leader as the owner. Everyone looks to you for that final decision. You are the teacher, you're the energy source in the room often. You are perhaps often even the person who has the biggest following in your studio. That's very common as well. And you're often the one who is sort of holding others, right? You're holding your clients accountable for their sessions and wanting to deliver for them. You're holding your team up as well, supporting them and their growth as teachers, in your community where you might be connecting with others, local businesses, and making sure that you are visible to them. There's really any space for anyone to hold you up. And I think that this can really create this sort of quiet emotional fatigue, not burnout exactly, but perhaps this sort of steady drip of running on empty. And, when you are not, as we would typically say, perhaps refilling your bucket, right? Or allowing yourself that sort of refreshing of your energy and re-energizing yourself for your business, it really is harder to make decisions. It's really harder to be inspired day in, day out. It's really hard to stay creative around your business. And it's really hard as well to stay confident and courageous in making bold decisions every single day. And I think that when you step into a different place where leadership doesn't mean, by the way, that you are carrying everything yourself. I think that leadership works best and means actually that you are the one not doing it all, but you are the one creating structures that allow you to perform at your best as well. So when a studio owner embraces the idea that you're not supposed to be doing it all, that actually allowing yourself to have space for creativity, to be able to solve problems or to take on new opportunities for growth, that a lot of other things become easier. And so the question then becomes, or what is it that you need in order to do that? We do this exercise inside of Thrive every year and then every quarter. And we make sure that we are absolutely incorporating your needs for yourself in order for you to show up as the best version of you in your business. And I think that when you step into that leadership role, one of your responsibilities truly becomes taking care of you so that you can show up as your best self. So when you stop expecting yourself to be the entire engine of the business and start to build the support and the structure and the systems that let you breathe, a lot of things change. And I've witnessed it over and over and over again. It's incredible to see the studio owners that come into Thrive and they are heavy and they are tired and they are often sort of, just like that. And when we start to work through the process of getting very clear on what their business needs from them, what their business needs next, and what they need as business owners from their business, that clarity and that next step and that plan that we make for them just gives them the room to breathe, to expand, to grow, and to relax and enjoy this incredible journey that they are on as business owners. Now, I think one of the other problems that we have when we are in this place is that we spend a lot of time looking sideways. And what I mean by that is we're looking sideways at what other studios are doing. We are looking at Instagram, we're scrolling their page, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning when you've woken up and you're wondering if this thing is right or that thing is right or what to do about this thing. You find yourself looking at what other studios are doing in your town or further afield. You're looking at your competitors and you probably immediately assume for the most part, that everyone else is doing great, even if you have no real proof of that other than a pretty Instagram feed, right? And I think that there is this sort of instinct then to immediately sort of retreat inwards, to keep those struggles private, to not talk about it, to not go and look for help, and to try to fix everything on your own. And I see it over and over again. People who come to me and they say, well, I saw this studio do this down the street, so I think I should do the same thing. Or I saw this other studio down the street and they're doing really, really well, so I don't really feel like I want to put myself out there right now. We make ourselves smaller because perhaps there is some comparisonitis, is what I call it, happening. And this just creates more of a bubble of isolation that tends to get sort of tighter and tighter and tighter. And the more isolated you become, especially when you're coming at it you're in this sort of a mindset, the harder it is to grow. Because growth requires you to have focus, to be able to speak about your goals, to talk through challenges, to have conversations where you are reflecting on your goals and your feelings about your business and what your strengths are, and to get feedback on where to go next. And through those conversations, through those deep, often very deep conversations, you get a lot of feedback and you get a lot of insights. And when you try to figure this out on your own, you're well into the weeds of your business. It's very, very hard to see that bigger picture. Business growth truly is not a solo sport. It is an ecosystem. And the moment that you shift from that idea of, I have to figure this out, to, I need to go get this question answered, then you open up the door to expansion. So when you have people around you who understand what you're trying to do and where you'd like to get to and want to help you to succeed, and who you trust to give you clear and insightful options, actually, I think for the next step, that you can talk through those different scenarios with lots of different tools, that's when you start to have that sort of safety net really for you. And to help you to really move forward. And I think it's wild how many studio owners are stuck where they are because they don't have that. They're not having those conversations. And the minute that studio owners just open up and start talking about their business and start to just talk through their goals and what they're looking for and what they're looking to do, and then to have someone else just be able to reflect back to them other things that might be interesting for them to consider as next steps. And it's incredible just how much, I would say, the lightness they have, and how much, I can see the joy kind of coming back into them around the opportunity that exists for them in their business. I see it happen all the time inside of Thrive. And it's wild how many breakthroughs happen the minute a studio owner stops pretending that they should just already know how to do everything, which I think is often the mindset that many of us have, right? And, this is interesting to kind of talk a bit about as well, because, as a highly trained teacher, I know so many of you have, and myself included, spent thousands of hours and thousands of dollars on training as a teacher. And you care deeply about your continuing education and what you're able to help your students and your clients to achieve. And you're used to being the expert in the room, right? And you're super smart. I'm all of that. But you would never dream of teaching a class or a session without having some training or without getting some guidance as to how that should happen, right? Because what we've seen is that, teaching is one skill set, and it is an incredibly important skill set. In fact, I don't think you can survive in this industry today without a fantastic set of teaching skills. But business requires a different skill set. I've already talked about all the different hats you wear as a business owner. And, there's no way that we can be trained in all of these to an expert level, right? But oftentimes, even when we know a little bit about a lot, we are not experts to the degree that we need to be in business. And when we admit what we don't know, that often feels uncomfortable. It can feel vulnerable. It can make you feel exposed. And many, many folks are often reluctant to do that, right? And I think the more open you can be with yourself about where you know your knowledge gaps lie, the more open you will become to learning and then receiving the right kind of guidance and the right kind of insights that will help you. So you often, if you don't like to feel like you aren't the expert in the room, and it's just totally human to feel that way, you'll find that you'll keep the questions to yourself. You'll keep the uncertainty quiet. You'll hold on to these unasked questions. And honestly, that just holds you more isolated. It keeps you isolated. And, I think that the reality is that, just because you don't have MBAs and huge levels of expertise across, marketing and strategy and, numbers and data analysis, that's totally fine because, you are an expert teacher. And it doesn't mean that you then have to go and do all that and become an expert in business, but you need to find someone who is, and who can help you to fill in some of those gaps, to give you the guidance that you need, and to share with you some of the things that might be most valuable to you as you go about building your business. So the most successful studio owners that I work with, truly, 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 are not the ones who know everything about everything. In fact, when those people come to me, it's often quite challenging to help them because I can see very quickly what the problem might be. And I'm sure you have clients like this too, but that are often reluctant to hear. And that's really a tricky spot to find ourselves in. So the most successful studio owners are not the ones who know everything about everything. They're the ones who are willing to ask, to learn, and to be open to receiving support and attention on themselves and their business. And once you allow yourself that openness to have access to the answers, you start getting the answers that you seek. And I'll tell you, those roadblocks and the procrastinations and the things that keep you second guessing and guessing again, and in that sort of going around in circles kind of place, that all goes away and you start getting direction and you start moving forward very, 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 very quickly. Now, I think we also have to remember that, yes, we are often, I think that many studio owners find ourselves forced be into sort of this position of isolation because, frankly, you're not going to share your revenue numbers or your profit numbers with everybody on your team. So, or maybe there is a challenge that comes up and yes, you are the only one who can handle it. And I think a lot of folks often beat themselves up a little bit more than they need to around how much they should be able to do. Like, I should be able to handle this. I should be able to do more. I should be able to have more clients. I should be able to know this by now. And I hear it a lot of people come to me and they say, I feel like I should be already doing this, or I feel like I should already be looking at that, or I feel like I should know my numbers. I don't. And it's sort of like this huge confession. and I have no judgment of any of that. I fully understand the situation that you're in completely. And, I wish that you had less shame around that, because without the shame, I think you probably would have gotten some support a bit earlier, right? And so I do think that when folks feel shame around what they don't know, you often actually feel like you can't talk about it because you're perhaps feel more shame and you feel like you shouldn't feel that way, or you should have been doing these things. And that kind of isolates you even further and you end up in this kind of loop. And it's such a shame. I'm kidding. But it really is. It is something that I think fuels this feeling of isolation as well. And fuels this sort of lack of desire to want to sort of raise your hand and share. And I want you to know that whenever you come to me, and I share this with our Thrive members as well, which is what makes our group so incredibly powerful, which is that there is no judgment in what you know, don't know, and what you want from your business at all. And so it's not about anything other than you saying, okay, here's what I want to do, and here's where I'm at, and let me access the support and the structure and the clarity and the community that I know is going to help, right? And so if you are feeling isolation right now, it's not a personality problem. It's not because you missed something. It's not because you're not tough enough. And it's not a weakness. It's just a sign that your business needs a little bit of structure, a little bit of support, a little bit of community, and a little bit more clarity, and your business and yourself, right? And so maybe that's a little bit of a message to you. And perhaps it's also a huge opportunity for you as well. And I think that when you treat it that way, I think the entire game changes. So I want to give you a quick recap here to wrap up. If you've been feeling isolated in your studio, it is true. You are not alone. You're not broken. You're not failing, right? You're probably just carrying this all with you without the systems and the support that you often, frankly, deserve. And you've probably been trying to lead without a place that you can go to be led forward yourself, and perhaps to grow without folks around you that you can kind of grow with. But I want to invite you to shift from this idea of, quote, I should be able to do this alone, quote, to I get to build the support I need, right? Because when you do that, everything opens up. Your clarity improves, your confidence gets better, your business grows, and you start feeling like you're the only one in the trenches doing it all. And if this episode really resonated with you, like I know it probably did with so many, and if you're craving community and if you're craving support and clarity and structure in a zero judgment way, then know that you don't have to do it all alone. And I would love to invite you to explore Thrive, my business coaching program for boutique fitness studio owners. It's where the studio owners come to stop feeling isolated. Truly, they don't. It is such a friendly and welcoming group. And it's where you can access that support community, but also the strategies, the structure, the tools, and the resources to help you grow. So you can learn more at spring3.com/thrive. And just know you don't have to do this alone. Did you love this episode and want more? Head to spring3.com and check out my free resources that will help you run a profitable and fulfilling studio business. And before you go, one last reminder, there is no one way to do what you do, only your way. So whatever it is that you want to do, create, or offer, you've got this. Thanks again for joining me today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.